And this is a movie that doesn't let everyone see it all the way through the end. So we're going to see a lot of death, a lot of harrowing deaths and losses. Welcome back to a brand new review, movie fans, as today we're discussing Netflix's All Quiet on the Western Front, the second remake of the 1930s war classic in this spoiler-free review as we follow teenagers Paul and his friends Albert and Mueller, egged on by romantic dreams of heroism as they enlist in the German army. Full of excitement and patriotic fervor, the boys enthusiastically march on into a war they fully believe in. But once on the Western Front, they experience firsthand how the initial euphoria of war rapidly turns into soul-destroying desperation and fear as they fight for their lives and for each other. And as a frame of reference, I've never seen the 30s original or the 70s remake, so I came into this film fully open to a brand new interpretation on a classic story because it would be my first interpretation on this classic story. And this is bar none one of the most horrifyingly realistic depictions of war on film since Saving Private Ryan, and a perfect companion piece to the recent 1917 sans the one-take gimmick. This film does not go for that. In fact, this film does not go for a ton of elements and choices that most Western, namely American and British war films, go for. This is one unforgettable and unforgiving experience and one of the best movies of the year. This is a challenging movie where there are no heroes, no clear good guy and no clear bad guy. Every character we meet is just another victim of patriotic indoctrination and idealism. And director Edward Berger is brave enough to provoke his audience and the ideals still held true by so many today to bear witness to the actual results of war. All the loss, all the suffering, all the wasted years and wasted lives through a fascinating story structure as we see how a war is fought through two fronts. On one hand, we have Paul and his friends, whose journey we witness as the harrowing loss of the innocence of youth, as their naive optimism and indoctrination are quickly confronted by the reality of what war is rather than the concept of what they're told war is by German delegates, who propagate this foolish patriotic sense of heroism as they're sending children off to the front lines to fend off for themselves and scavenge to survive as they sit on comfy chairs by warm fires with tables full of food. And it's the contrast between these two visions of the two different fronts where war is fought that really puts things into perspective and challenges the notions of the audience coming in to this war movie. The more the sense of desperation and hopelessness grows on the Western Front, the more the delegates seem to get comfortable, seeing soldiers as mere tools to be used at their whim. The war sequences, which we'll get to, as they unfold, the frames begin to look grayer, the color begins to dissipate, but then you contrast that with the sequences of delegates just conversing far away from the front lines, and the warm tones and saturation levels are elevated, and these moments are filled with deafening silence because of how far away are them from the actual war. This is reflected from the very beginning of the film, as the film opens with a soldier dying on the field. His uniform is collected from his corpse, shipped off to a factory, washed off of the blood and dirt, mended, and given to a new recruit. From the start, Berger generates an immersive sense of dread, illustrating the futile, self-fulfilling cycle of death that war creates as perpetuated by those giving the orders far away from the front lines in their comfy chairs. It is not a film that celebrates war or the people who fight in it, not even forgiving the harsh decisions made by diplomats in their attempts to end the bloodshed. It is in its entirety a relentless attack on the horrors brought by war to all life, with no gloss, with no glamour. This is an anti-war war film, and it is impeccably effective at that. In great part due to Berger wasting no time in establishing the character's worldview and convictions, only to pull the rug from underneath them so the dark reality of war can be fully explored in all its ugliness, only to keep getting worse and worse as the film unravels for 2 hours and 30 minutes. It is a tough watch, do not get me wrong, and I don't think this runtime will work for everyone because the characters can feel so thin for a very good reason. It is very intentional on the director's part, but the film in its entirety, because of all this, becomes a vicious onslaught on all the senses, beginning with an engrossing score where every boom and beat of drums becomes a terrifying warning that sends chills down your spine, much like it does to the soldiers in the front lines. It is a horror movie by all measures, not just thanks to this immersive sound design, but the jaw-dropping cinematography as well, capturing the harrowing and really barbaric war sequences with fantastic makeup, production design, and practical effects. From a simple run through the trenches, which we've seen countless times in maybe every war movie ever made, even in 1917, that may still hold the distinction of having the best version of such a sequence, to the way tanks are brought into battle, depicted as monsters signaling impending doom. I don't think I've ever been as afraid of a tank as I was in this film. Every war sequence just manages to outdo the last one, as from the very beginning, each and every one of these people that we get to meet, they're portrayed as fragile, as easily broken, as any human being really is. And the more the film goes on, the more dread you feel for them, because they just feel so tired. They just feel like they have no chance of surviving. That sense of hopelessness that we discussed is ever more present the more battle sequences we witness, and they're just become more gruesome and more violent and more nasty to see, with all its practical effects, a great mix of CGI that is seamless. But then even outside war sequences, as we see these characters in moments of calm and supposed sereneness, they're still trying to survive. They're still searching for food. When they infiltrate enemy territory, the first thing you see them do is not try and go into battle, is not try and kill someone else. It's try and find food and nourishment. They're really just trying to survive. They're not really trying to win at a certain point. And I think these sequences are helped by those more calm moments where we see them in between battle sequences, where we see a little bit of the friendship, of the camaraderie. We have characters reading someone else a letter because they can't read, and we begin to understand a little bit of what they left behind. This is the character work that seems very surface level, but is trying to serve a very intentional purpose from a direction standpoint, where, like we talked about, none of these characters are supposed to be very specific, but they're all victims. And this is a movie that doesn't let everyone see it all the way through the end. So we're going to see a lot of death, a lot of harrowing deaths and losses. And because the characters can feel so thin, I don't think this is going to work on that level for everyone. It didn't bother me, but from a preference standpoint, this is a film I'm going to admire the masterful filmmaking in every way, like we talked about, from the sound design to the visuals, the production in general. This is a film you have to witness. This is a film that has become a war movie landmark in the history of cinema, but maybe you're not going to see the most well-developed, most complex and fleshed out characters, but they also didn't need to be. It's just a matter of preference. Before we cross the final threshold into my final thoughts on All Quiet on the Western Front, I need you to start the conversation about it in the comments below. What is your favorite war movie? Does this stack up to it? Did you catch it in cinemas or on Netflix by the time you find this video? And if you're enjoying this review, there's more like it up on this playlist. Or if you just love movies and TV, this is the place to be, so consider clicking that subscribe button and you won't miss any future conversations on your favorite movies and TV. None of these issues and nitpicks, however, take away from how heavy and dark this film gets, to the point where we see soldiers wanting to kill themselves over continuing to fight a war that more and more they realize they have no idea why they're fighting it. The same people who began this film as enthusiastic patriots, ready to prove their worth, and the more they fought, the more their sense of worth disappeared, alongside the mangled, bloodied bodies of their friends fallen on the battlefield. It is ugly, and it makes for one unforgivable watch, but one that you just don't forget. It's a film that has a message to deliver, an anti-war message to deliver, and it uses the exact thing it hates to deliver it to great success, in my opinion. All Quiet on the Western Front is an utterly engrossing and terrifyingly intense depiction of the inhumanity of war. A brutal, bleak, and immersive audio-visual achievement, making for one relentlessly difficult but unforgettable experience. Truly a quintessential war epic. And I'm giving All Quiet on the Western Front an A-. Don't forget to share your thoughts on All Quiet on the Western Front, whether it be this new one or any of the previous versions. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back to talk Barbarian with you later today, and thanks to my channel members for always supporting the channel. So until the next one, love each other and love the movies.